Welcome to the Quantum AI Coach podcast. I'm Gina, founder of Virtual World Coaching Academy.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking on a mission that might just completely change how you look at your business. We're stepping into the role of, well, your intuitive consultants today.
Yes, absolutely. Because the usual spreadsheet diagnostics, they just don't work when you reach a certain level of scale.
They really don't. So we're diagnosing why you might be hitting this invisible revenue wall. And what if the exact reason your revenue has flatlined isn't because your marketing is broken, but because your nervous system is desperately trying to save your life?
It's a heavy thought, right? Because when we hit a wall, our first instinct is to look for something binary. We want to find, a jagged little dip in a conversion rate.
Oh, totally. We want to just point and say, there's the problem, let's fix the ad spend.
Exactly. We want it to be a neat little lead generation issue. But if you are listening to this right now and you're feeling incredibly frustrated because you're doing everything right on paper, but you're still not growing, we need to reframe the entire conflict.
Okay, let's unpack this, because business scaling at this level is almost never a marketing problem. It is a failure of internal flexibility, right? It's about structural integrity.
Yes, structural integrity, because your immediate instinct, like any entrepreneur looking at a stagnant quarter, is to just look out the window.
Yeah, we blame the economy. Or the new algorithm changes. We say the new batch of leads is just low quality.
And we really have to gently challenge that instinct today. I mean, blaming the external environment might protect your ego in the short term.
But it totally strips you of your agency.
Exactly. It makes you a victim of the market. To truly diagnose this invisible ceiling, we have to look at the roots of the elements.
The roots of the elements. I like that phrase.
Yeah, it's about the hidden causes of your business stagnation.
Yeah.
You have to take absolute responsibility for your internal state and, well, your energy frequency.
So what does this all mean for the entrepreneur who feels like they're doing everything right on paper, but still not growing? Because, when you say internal state or energy frequency, some people might tune out.
Right. They think we're talking about mystical auras.
Yeah, exactly. But we aren't. We're talking about the very real physiological state of your nervous system, the subtle cues communicating stress to your team and your market.
And that is the vital bridge we have to build today. We have to marry the spiritual terminology with the scientific reality to actually give you logical ammunition.
Which means using bridge words.
Yes, like taking traditional terms like organizational structure and strategy and laying them right alongside the unified field of consciousness and energy frequency.
Right, because traditional strategy ignores the behavioral network that actually powers the structure.
Exactly. If your biological foundation is fractured, your strategy simply cannot execute. We really have to understand how the body actively resists success.
So it's like, well, think about it like this. Most people think that adding more revenue to a current container is just an upgrade, like
Right.
jumping from 20,000 pound months to 50,000 pound months.
Oh, but it isn't an upgrade at all. If you just add more weight to the exact same frame, it's a collapse waiting to happen.
Because more money means more responsibility, more visibility.
It represents an identity death.
Wow. An identity death. That's intense.
It is, because if your internal geometry isn't ready to hold that specific weight, your biology literally steps in to protect you from being crushed.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's like trying to run next-generation software on a 5-year-old operating system.
That's a perfect analogy.
The system will literally crash to protect the hard drive, right?
Mhm.
It just shuts down to preserve baseline function. But wait, why does the body treat wealth like a physical threat?
That's the million-dollar question. Intellectually, you want the success. You mapped out the vision board.
Yeah, I want the 50K month. Why is my amygdala treating it like a tiger in the bushes?
Because your nervous system doesn't read your vision board. It doesn't care about your intellectual goals.
Right.
It reads your physical capacity. This brings us to polyvagal theory. Our nervous system is constantly mapping the world, just scanning for safety and danger.
So if my current 20K month is already costing me sleep and my cortisol is spiked,
Exactly. Your primitive brain calculates that trajectory. It says, well, if 20,000 is costing this much life force, 50,000 will literally be lethal.
oh wow. So it triggers a freeze response in your marketing.
Yes, it's a biological survival mechanism. You aren't being lazy, you are biologically protected.
That is such a wild reframe. So when I sit there procrastinating on a big pitch, or I find tiny flaws to delay a launch by 3 months,
You think it's imposter syndrome, but your body is subconsciously bottlenecking your leads to preserve what's left of your energy.
which perfectly leads into this amazing real-world example from the source material. To answer how this threat response actually manifests, we have to talk about the London photo shoot.
Oh, yes, that case study is brilliant.
So for context, the subject of this story is an entrepreneur building their brand, and they get offered this highly visible, prestigious photo shoot in London.
Which is, a massive symbol of power and visibility for them.
Exactly. It's the exact opportunity they wanted. Everything is booked. But the night before, they have this incredibly vivid dream. In the dream, every single train to London is canceled. They pull out their phone, open the transit app to find a route, and the screen just goes completely black.
Just a black void. What's fascinating here is how we interpret that void.
Because the old small self would wake up and go, oh, the universe is sending me signs. This isn't aligned.
Right. They would have used that black screen as an excuse to retreat into safety. They would have called in sick.
Which is basically giving your agency away to a dream.
Exactly. It's abdicating responsibility. But instead, they realized it was their own nervous system showing them the edge of their current container.
They saw the glitch in their own software.
Yes, they hit the perimeter of what felt biologically safe. And this highlights the entire concept of sovereignty over force.
Because the old business paradigm is all about what they call hustle-based resilience, right?
Yeah, forcing the outcome.
Yeah.
Pushing aggressively through the fear. Drinking 3 coffees and grinding it out.
But if you aggressively push through a biological freeze response,
You just prove to your amygdala that success is a traumatizing event, and we're just reinforcing the trauma.
so what did the sovereign approach look like for them?
Well, remaining sovereign and self-led meant they didn't force it, but they didn't run away either. They acknowledged the fear, and they chose to go to London anyway.
They stood in that power pose in front of the camera.
Yes, and by holding that space, allowing the fear and the power to coexist without violently suppressing the fear with adrenaline, they expanded their bandwidth.
They successfully updated their internal software.
Exactly. They built a foundation that could actually hold the skyscraper.
So that makes perfect sense conceptually. But now that we understand what updating the software looks like, how do we actually audit our own structural tension?
Well, the source material offers a really clear 3-point framework for sovereign capacity. It's a way to qualify if your container is actually ready for scale.
Okay, let's walk through it. Point number 1 is structural integrity.
Right. You have to ask, are your systems built on effort and adrenaline, or are they built on a true framework?
Because adrenaline's a finite fuel, right?
Exactly. If you're running on high arousal, answering emails at midnight, constantly putting out fires, that's not a permanent structure.
You're just scaling chaos.
And when the adrenaline runs out, the biology forces a shutdown. A real framework has integrity. It functions even when your personal energy dips.
Okay, so that leads to the second point, which is the neutrality test.
This one is usually a huge wake-up call for people.
Yeah, the question is, can you view a 50,000-pound month and a 5,000-pound month with the exact same emotional neutrality?
Yes.
But hold on, I have to push back here. Shouldn't an entrepreneur celebrate a 50,000-pound month? I mean, why is an elevated heart rate a bad thing?
I get that a lot, but think about the biological cost. Your nervous system doesn't really differentiate between massive euphoric excitement and massive terrifying panic.
Wait, really? It just reads it all as stress.
It just reads it as highly elevated physiological arousal. Both states require a huge surge of metabolic energy to sustain.
So if a big revenue month causes a biological spike, even a happy one,
It proves your container is too small. It proves the nervous system is overwhelmed because the event is so far outside your normal window of tolerance.
oh wow, because a billionaire making 50K wouldn't even blink.
Exactly. It's entirely neutral for them. If wealth causes a physiological spike for you, your body views it as an exhausting event and will subconsciously prevent it from happening consistently.
That is wild. Okay, so the third point of the framework is the visibility threshold.
Right. Does being seen by more people feel like an attack or an expansion?
Because if your immediate reaction to going viral is a tight chest and wanting to hide,
Your amygdala is equating visibility with being hunted. In the wild, being visible makes you a target.
so you naturally hit the brakes on your marketing.
Yes. And to explain how we overcome this, there's this brilliant analogy of the trauma medic.
Oh, the medic versus the non-medic in a crisis. Break that down for us.
Imagine a massive emergency on a street. A non-medic will immediately spike into panic. Right. Their heart rate skyrockets. They freeze.
Naturally.
But a trained trauma medic walks into that exact same intense situation, and their heart rate stays steady. They're calm.
And it's not because the medic is inherently stronger or braver, right?
Exactly. They aren't just aggressively pushing through panic using willpower. They simply have a larger container for the intensity.
They've trained their nervous system to hold that frequency without perceiving it as a threat.
Yes.
Yeah.
To scale, you have to become the medic of your own wealth.
Okay, so knowing our limits isn't enough. We need a practical tool to actually re-architect this system immediately.
We do. And that is where the practice comes in. Moving from a burden to a boundary.
The source material calls this the Burden-to-Boundary Translator.
Right. You have to identify one single burden in your business that is currently straining your architecture.
Something that feels disproportionately heavy, like a client texting you on a Sunday morning.
Or a legacy service you offer that just drains you, but you keep doing it to pay the bills.
Right. So you identify it, and then what?
You transmute it into a sovereign boundary. You don't just sit around complaining about the client. That's victimhood.
You change the structural framework. You set the firm autoresponder.
Yes. You officially sunset the draining service. You actively communicate with your nervous system.
Because by doing that, sitting with the discomfort of saying no, you give your amygdala evidence that you are safe.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the stakes here are incredibly high.
Yeah. What happens if we don't translate these burdens?
If you don't translate these burdens into boundaries, you will inevitably hit burnout before you ever hit your breakthrough.
Your body will shut the whole operation down to save you.
Mathematically inevitable.
Wow. So as we bring this deep dive to a close, we want to leave you with a final, very quiet question from the source material to just mull over.
Yeah, just sit with this for a second. When you imagine earning more, what is the one thing about it that feels slightly uncomfortable?
That specific feeling, that discomfort, is the exact doorway to your next level. If you felt that invisible revenue ceiling resetting you back to the same level, you weren't broken, you're simply patterned. To begin updating that pattern, I invite you to take the coherence assessment using our Burden-to-Boundary Coach Gemini. This isn't just an audit of your business, it's a diagnostic for your nervous system to see exactly where your architecture is under tension. Remember, the universe is listening to the frequency of your boundaries, not just your goals. If this resonance has shifted something for you today, like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notifications so you never miss a transmission on how to re-architect your millionaire self.
So when Gina offered me the opportunity to do this, I jumped for it because I think anything that you can do that is going to chip away at these limiting the beliefs of things that hold you back is really, really worth doing. So it's been a really lovely experience, and if anybody's a bit worried about it, just do it, because the opportunity to connect through havening is really, really powerful. It's really, really powerful.
But really helpful, I think, in terms of having that kind of guided process just to kind of let the ideas and the feelings and the images flow, and then try and work out what it actually means afterwards, and to come up with, and it made intuitive sense. It's really, really helpful to then kind of have that debrief of, okay, what can we actually do with this stuff? Because that's where we tend to get stuck, is kind of like coming out of it going, oh, this is all some really interesting ideas and thoughts and feelings and images. But yeah, then, you know, how can we actually harness them to do something different? And I think that's been really, really helpful in terms of clarifying really what I need to prioritize to go forward in a way that will deal with some of that stuff that came up.
I would like to point out that I'm actually a therapist myself, and sometimes therapists also need a therapist. So I was really stuck, and then one day a friend posted a link for Gina's wealth and money attracting short course, and I went, this sounds great, I'm just gonna book it. And I loved it so much. I really had an epiphany on that course, and it was only meant to be a demonstration, and yet it was really it just opened up something, possibilities that I was stuck before, and now like, ooh, I can use this to unstuck myself. I'm a great believer that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. and you appeared at the right time. That's all there is to it. So, if anybody is watching this video, it means Gina has appeared in your life. So please give it a try.
She walks where the sky meets the sea, a calm in the cave.